Ultra processed foods, what are they? What does it mean? And I thought I'd go through that in this video because a lot of these terms in terms of UPF, ultra processed food, are being thrown around by health professionals, online fitness individuals, whoever is throwing it around. But I feel like the terms are being interchanged with the word processing, and not everything's as bad as it seems, but I feel like it's always best to go through it in a practical way. And that is why I have set out 4 different classes of food in front of me. So the term ultra processed food all derived from the University of Sao Paulo in Brazil back in about 2009, when people were looking into this idea of, we were all into the idea of macronutrients, so protein, fats, carbohydrates, but we were then, started to mass produce food on an industrial scale. And was this impacting our health in ways that we weren't seeing at the time? And there's been quite a few studies. I mean, the one that pops to mind is, I think it's Kevin Hall, where he got a group of people and basically got them to eat as much as they wanted of whole foods, non-processed, and then got another group to eat ultra-processed foods as much as they wanted. And then they swapped over after a 2-week period, and they found out that the ultra-processed food group always consumed higher calories. I think it was 508 calories extra each day. And that was through no provocation. And that just shows that there is something going on that a lot of people weren't aware of. Like I said, there's a few terms that are being used interchangeably. So I've just done it before: processing and ultra processing. Processing is something as simple as cutting up some food or drying it, freezing it. That is classed as processing, and it's not always that bad. Ultra processing is where you are industrially doing something to it, and that could be adding in certain ingredients and other processes that you wouldn't be able to do in a normal kitchen. I think that's the best definition. So going back to ultra processed food, was derived from University of Sao Paulo. They come up with a classification called the NOVA classification, which puts foods into 4 groups, which I have done depending on how this comes out, because I'm filming on the front camera. Hopefully it flips it around. But we've got group 1 here, group 2, group 3, and group 4. So group 1 is what is classed as minimally processed, or like in its natural elements essentially. So here we've got chicken fillets. Obviously in its natural form it would be a whole chicken, but I'm not going to keep a whole chicken in the house and slaughter it when it comes to having me tea. So the processing that's gone on here in terms of minimal is it's being cut up into fillets, and it's being able to be refrigerated, because that's able to keep it palatable for us and safe for us to consume. Same with blueberries. I mean, nothing's really happened to them. That is basically what you would normally find if you were to go and look for blueberries. There is a thing at the moment with pesticides that goes into another equation, but for today, NOVA classification, these are classed as group 1. Group 2 are foods that are usually not consumed on their own, which is a bit of a different thing. So they're not consumed on their own. They're again classed as marginally processed, and they are derived from foods in group 1. So here I've got some extra virgin olive oil. So it's being derived from olives, and the fact that it's being cold pressed, it's kept a lot of its natural integrity, but you wouldn't eat it on its own normally, and it's there to supplement group 1, but it is not an olive in its own right. So that is why it's classed as group 2. So again, these 2 still really good for your diet, keep them going. Group 3 is then what we class as processed foods. So I've got 2 different examples here. I've got pickled gherkins. So what do they contain? Again, all whole food ingredients if you are careful and get the right ones. So they've got gherkins, and then it's being processed within salt, vinegar, water, which are fine because it's just obviously preserving it and giving it a different palatability. But because it's all whole food ingredients and the process in which it's done is something that you can do at home, I think that's the best definition. If you can do it in your kitchen and find the ingredients, it's normally a healthy food. So pickled gherkins there, and then hummus. So hummus is made up of chickpeas, you've got tahini, you have olive oil, garlic, and you can add all them in to make a processed food. Now, as a rule of thumb, group 3 normally derives from group 2 being added to group 1, which makes sense. Olive oil being added to chickpeas and garlic, etc., makes it group 3. And in terms of health and following a whole food diet, these are the foods that you should normally stick to. Group 1 to 3, ideally more from group 1 and 2, but obviously group 3 more than healthy enough. And that is the bulk of our diet. I would say about 95%. That is why I struggled getting the last group, which is ultra processed foods, which is group 4. Now this one's Oatly oat milk, and this is sort of like a double sort of, not a double meaning, but a lot of people think that these plant-based alternatives are healthy, when in reality they are highly ultra processed. So with this one, for example, it's got acidity regulators in it. Rapeseed oil, bit of a weird one, rapeseed oil, because technically it's group 2, because if you cold press the seeds you will get rapeseed oil. However, in the large majority of foods such as plant-based milks, when you look at general confectionery, it's being highly industrialized, so that anything that it's added to really is going to be a group 4 food. You've got other things in here. What else have you got? You've got vitamins and minerals back added into it, so fortification. So that is also classed as a group 4, because you wouldn't be able to do that in your own kitchen. And in terms of, is that healthy? Is that going to be of detriment to your diet, your health? In small quantities, no. That's why I always try and advise people to go down the route of 20% whole foods. No, 80% whole foods, that's the other way around, 20% ultra processed. I obviously try and make that margin a bit more tight for me, so I try and do 5%. The only reason I have this is due to a dairy intolerance. I like having a coffee in the morning, so that is what I sort of offset as my risk. But a lot of people go down this route, like I said, they're just using these terms interchangeably. And as a human, just a bit of general physiology, we don't have a long digestive system in comparison to other animals. So for us to eat foods, we need to process it. Processing is anything down from, like I've just said, cutting up a chicken breast into fillets, cooking it on a stove. That is all processing. It's all helping us to basically digest the food when we come to consume it, because like I said, it's quite small, our digestive tract. If we can do anything to aid it outside the body, it then increases the chance of absorption, palatability, and they're all the things that we are aiming towards. The ultra processed food argument is always going to be around, and I'm always advising people to go for these types of food because they are rich, as you can see, in fiber, antioxidants, polyphenols. You've got a lot of ingredients that this is completely void of. It's void of fiber unless we try and back add it in, which doesn't give it the same effect. And there's more and more studies coming out with sweeteners and other things that we're adding into these foods, and essentially we don't know what they're doing to your body. And I feel like over the next 5 years you will see a big disparity in health equality between people who've been able to afford, not so much afford these, but just chose to do this type of diet in comparison to this one. Now, do I believe everyone should remove ultra processed food completely? Obviously, from a financial point of view, there are some people out there who need to have ultra processed food, and given the fact that the global population is growing all the time, normal farming, agriculture, all these ways that we would produce food, because we don't have the infrastructure in place, in my opinion, we could have, but we've sort of destroyed it ourselves. Even in the UK, we've sort of outsourced a lot of agriculture and making it harder for people to obtain organic food in our own country. That ultra processing of food needs to happen in order to supply enough food for the food chain. So there are benefits to it, and like I said, without this being ultra processed, I wouldn't be able to have any of the non-dairy, or I wouldn't be able to have all the things that I have now because of intolerances. And you've obviously got gluten allergies, where we've been able to accommodate these things for them people. But in general, try and stick to group 1, 2 and 3. Try and stay as far away from them as possible. And if you are ever unsure, I can't really show the camera, but I will try. If you look on the back of any ingredients, so oat milk, you would expect oats, bit of salt, water. That is literally what's in oat milk. And there are some brands that do it, but when it comes to having a coffee, for example, because oats are not really high in fat, we add the rapeseed oil in, because then it allows it to be frothed up and just gives it a greater palatability for us. If you ever check the back of an ingredients list and you do not recognize any of them without obtaining a science degree, there's a good chance that you shouldn't be eating large quantities or consuming large quantities of it. I've also done this video because I did a poll, and ultra processed food was number one, or was one of the highest that was voted. And I feel like it's an important thing, because as we keep going into, as we further on our diets, we're focusing on other things. So a lot of people will just pick this up and say, in terms of macronutrients, it's got 3 grams of fat for 100 mil. It's got, I mean, it's actually pretty poor, 1.1 grams for 100 mil of protein. But they just focus on the back and just think it's all about energy in, energy out, and it's all about what macronutrients are coming into the body, when in reality, it's all about where you source your ingredients. It's how the structure of food and all the other things that we don't measure in many diets, how they interact with the body. That is where you're going to see the greatest increases in your health. I've not talked about anything medical, but I always put it in anyway, because my channel is mainly medical based, but this was for informational purposes only. You should always consult someone, whether it's your local provider, when it is in relation to changing your diet, because there are things such as medication and other things that can change if you were to drastically change your diet. If you've got this far, thanks for watching. Any other questions, by all means put them below, and I will see you in the next one.